In this lesson, we're going to read a news article together so you can improve all areas of your English. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
First, I'll read the headline. Saturn's majestic rings will vanish in 2025. Are you familiar with this adjective, majestic? This means beautiful, but in the sense of producing admiration. So in that regard, we don't usually use it to describe people. It's not common to say, you look majestic, or that shirt is majestic, but we do use this a lot to describe scenery or experiences. So for now, I recommend you use it with scenery because every day you can look outside and make an observation about something looking majestic or being majestic. For example, the stars look majestic tonight. And notice I said you can use look or be. So you could say the stars are, because of course stars is plural, the stars are majestic tonight. Saturn's majestic rings, of course, notice this possessive because the rings belong to Saturn. Saturn's majestic rings will vanish. This word is very similar to disappear, but when something vanishes, it happens instantly and also perhaps mysteriously. You don't know the reason why. Native speakers frequently use this in more of a sarcastic or comical way. For example, whenever I need help, my coworker vanishes, suddenly disappears. Now notice here with this ES, it adds that extra sound. Vanishes, shiz. Repeat after me. Shiz, vanishes, vanishes. I could say, my students won't vanish from my channel. If you vanish, it means all of a sudden you disappear, you no longer watch my lessons, you unsubscribe, for example, but I know my students won't vanish from my channel, right? Put that's right. So I know you won't vanish. Put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's continue and find out why or how these majestic rings will vanish. Most people consider Saturn's awe-inspiring system of rings that encircle. So the rings form a circle around. Encircle. That's encircle. The rings that encircle the planet to be the most fascinating and iconic celestial feature in our solar system. The word celestial means of or from the sky or outside this world. So of course, the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, they would all be celestial features, or you could say bodies, objects. You would need some word after because celestial is an adjective. Now, fascinating means extremely interesting. So instead of saying very interesting or extremely interesting, you could say fascinating. For example, learning about Saturn. So notice my gerund statement. I'm starting my sentence with the gerund verb, the verb in ing to make a general statement. Learning about Saturn and other celestial bodies, features. You could also say wonders. A wonder is something that produces awe or mystery or intrigue. For example, the 7 wonders of the world. We're all very curious about them. So you could refer to celestial wonders as well. Is fascinating, is extremely interesting. But maybe for you, this isn't true. So you could always put this in the negative. Isn't fascinating. I prefer learning about the ocean instead, which is not a celestial feature because it's not of the solar system, it's of the ocean. And I previously used the word awe. So notice here, awe-inspiring as an adjective. If something is awe-inspiring, It's more unique, it's mysterious, it's more of a wonder. So wondrous would be the adjective. All wonder is a noun, wondrous is an adjective. So when you look at it, it really produces some curiosity or some feeling of fascination in you. That could be awe-inspiring.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Back in the 17th century, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei first spied Saturn through his ancient telescope. Let's review the pronunciation here. Don't look at the word because the spelling and pronunciation are different. Just listen to my voice. Ancient, chint, ancient, ancient, through his ancient telescope. Now let's review this word here, spied. Do you recognize the verb? This is in the past simple, so it's an ed, but the verb is to spy. So when you spy, you simply see, but when you spy, it sounds like you're purposely observing and trying to see something specific. Now, you probably know this verb from detective novels, or spy novels is even a genre of novels, spy novels. But generally, if you're not a detective, this is considered not a positive thing. For example, you shouldn't spy on your neighbors. You shouldn't purposely observe your neighbors because it's none of your business what your neighbors do. So you shouldn't spy on your neighbors. Now let's look back here because we have back in the 17th century. When we say back in and then a time reference, it makes it sound like a long time ago. You could say, I graduated back in 2005. So of course you can say, I graduated in 2005. If you add the word back, it simply communicates that you view this as a very long time ago. Even if it wasn't, maybe it was 2019, which wasn't that long ago, but to you, it seems like a very long time ago. So you can add this even if it was a short period of time, just to communicate that for you, it feels like a long time ago. Now notice we also have back in the 17th century. Remember that with an ordinal number, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, so ordinal numbers, you must use the. For example, I live on the 4th floor, and you need to pronounce that th. I work on the 4th floor. Let's continue. He compared the planet's appearance to having ears due to the limitations of his device. So the limitations of his device, what is his device? The telescope, but of course, a very ancient telescope back in the 17th century. So you could not see it like this. Of course, this isn't an accurate image of Saturn. You couldn't see it like this back in the 17th century because the devices, the tools, the equipment were ancient. Hopefully you find this lesson fascinating, extremely interesting so far. Let's keep going. Saturn's axis is tilted, just like Earth's. For half of its year, the ringed planet, so this ringed is describing the planet. Remember that word encircled encircled by rings. The ringed planet leans. So right now I'm not leaning, but now I'm leaning on my elbow, or I'm leaning to the right, I'm leaning to the left. So that is the word lean. The ringed planet leans toward the sun, lighting up the top of its rings. For the other half, it tilts back, and the sun shines on Saturn's south pole and the bottom of the rings. The verbs lean to lean and tilt to tilt are very common in the sense that the result is the same if I lean or tilt, but generally we use tilt for objects like my chair because you change the angle or position. So right now my chair is in a fixed position, but if I change that angle or position, I can tilt my chair back or I can tilt it forward, for example. But lean is more of a change your weight, and then your position naturally changes because you change your weight. So for our body movements, we use the verb lean. I'm leaning. But for an object, I could change the angle or position, which is its tilt. Notice here they say Saturn's axis is tilted. So it's on an angle, positioned on an angle. You could say the building is tilted. So the builders, they built it on an angle. Or you could say the bricks are deteriorating, which means gradually crumbling, gradually weakening. The bricks are deteriorating, so now the building leans to the left because the support of the bricks is less and less. So the weight of the building is shifting. So very similar but subtle difference between the two. Interestingly, there are two brief times during Saturn's orbit when the ring edge points directly at the sun. This event, known as an equinox, gives both Saturn's northern and southern hemispheres some equal sunlight for a short while. Let's look at interestingly. Interestingly, this is a transition word, and transition words are a great way to add to your communication to make you sound more fluent or more professional. So interestingly, this tells you that what is to come, according to the author, is interesting. You could say, my roommate always vanishes on cleaning day. So you have a set day of the week that you clean your apartment, and your roommate is supposed to also clean, but interestingly, he or she always vanishes. So you can add on interestingly just to show how you feel about the situation. Now, maybe interestingly isn't the right choice. Maybe it's more annoyingly. Annoyingly, my roommate always vanishes on cleaning day. So you can think of it as saying it is interesting, it is annoying that my roommate always vanishes. So you can take the adjective and then turn it into an adverb with ly to show how you feel about the situation. Let's continue. Now notice again, we have another adverb functions as a transition word. Thankfully, this isn't a permanent change. So you could just say this isn't a permanent change. The change being that the rings vanish, the rings disappear. This isn't permanent. Now you can express how you feel about this situation. Thankfully, you're happy that this isn't a permanent change. It's a fleeting cosmic event. Do you know what fleeting means? It's an adjective. You know that because we have a cosmic event, and then fleeting gives you information about it. So it's an adjective. If something is fleeting, it means it lasts for a very short period of time. You could say we met back in 2019. Remember, you're adding back to make it sound like it was a long time ago. We met back in 2019, but Our romance was fleeting. So we had a romantic relationship, but for a very short period of time. But you could add on and express your feelings of it and say, thankfully, we're both happily married today. So the story has a happy ending. And notice happily is an adjective, an adverb that describes your marriage. We're both happily married today. It's a fleeting cosmic event that recurs, happens again and again every 29.5 years, which is how long it takes Saturn to orbit the sun. Orbit means to go around in a complete circle. Now, the verb to occur means to happen. And if you add re before verbs, it means that you do that verb again. So reoccur means to happen again, but it's not repeatedly or as a pattern. So for example, my internet bill is recurring. Every 15th of the month, I get a bill, and that will happen again and again as a pattern until I cancel my bill. My internet bill is recurring. But I would say, let's hope the power outage doesn't reoccur. So it doesn't happen again, but just one more time. There is not a pattern of power outages. The power outage means that everything goes dark. I do not have power, electricity. That is a power outage. So there is an important difference between recur and reoccur. Let's continue. After March 2025, Saturn's axial tilt will bring the rings back into view, then vanish, suddenly disappear, almost mysteriously disappear, then vanish again in November 2025. Saturn's rings won't completely disappear in 2025, but they will seem to vanish. So if something seems to do something, it means it appears in that way, but it isn't 100% truthful or accurate or certain. Let's compare these sentences. She's sick. She is sick. So this is our verb to be as a contraction. She's sick compared to she seems to be sick. So here it's the verb seem and then the infinitive, to be sick. You could also say she appears to be sick, and it has the same meaning. This is a statement of fact. I can say with certainty that this is true. This is not with certainty. I think, but I'm not 100% certain. She seems to be sick. She sounds sick. She looks sick, but I haven't asked her. She hasn't told me directly. I haven't talked to her doctor, for example. But they will seem to vanish for a short period due to an event called ring plane crossing. This happens when Earth passes through Saturn's ring plane, making the rings appear edge on. Since the rings are so thin, they can become almost invisible from our perspective on Earth. So this is why they seem to vanish, but this isn't actually truthful. It appears this way. It seems to happen this way. Now, our perspective, you could also say our view on Earth. These two words are commonly used when you express your opinion. Of course, you know to say in my opinion, and then you state your opinion. But when you use perspective or view, you use the word from my perspective, from my point of view. So you wouldn't just say from my view, you would say point of view. And from my point of view, learning about Saturn is fascinating. And again, you can make this negative because it's your opinion, your perspective, your point of view, and you're entitled to it. So I added in my opinion so you remember the difference. The rings will appear to disappear. Now remember, you could say the rings will seem to disappear, which means that it isn't actually true. So the rings will seem or appear to disappear for only a few days or weeks as the crossing happens. However, the rings will still be there, just not visible from Earth. So we can't see them, but they exist. They exist on the planet Saturn. That's why they're saying appear to disappear or seem to disappear, because that's what it looks like from our perspective, but that isn't the reality. That isn't the truth. And that's why they didn't just say the rings will disappear, because they won't. It's just our perspective. Saturn experiences a ring plane crossing roughly every 15 years. With the upcoming crossing in 2025, however, conditions will be less than favorable for observing the planet. It will be largely obscured by the light of the sun. So this is saying that unfortunately, we won't be able to see this very well, even with a telescope, because it will be largely obscured. Do you know what this means? Obscured. When something is obscured by something else, it means that you're unable to see it. So another word, a more common word, would be blocked. So right now, your view of me is blocked. It's obscured by my hands. So right now, your view is blocked. You could also use this with sound. So I could obscure the sound. I won't, because that will be unpleasant, but I could put my hand over the microphone and obscure my voice as well. But it is more commonly used with sight. So you could say our view of the fireworks was obscured. So notice this to be obscured by. Now it's our view, which is singular, not fireworks, which is plural. Why I'm using was and not were. Remember, this is the verb to be in the past simple. It was obscured. It was. It represents our view. Our view of the fireworks was obscured by the clouds. We couldn't see the fireworks because of the clouds. This is the passive. You can use this in an active as well and say the clouds obscured our view. You can absolutely say obscured. Blocked is the more everyday word. And to be honest, I would use blocked 90% of the time in my vocabulary. And I would use obscured in very specific situations when I want to sound more formal or more technical, then I would use obscured. But you can use both. They have the same meaning. And that's the end of our article. Hopefully you found it fascinating. Now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Saturn's majestic rings will vanish in 2025. Most people consider Saturn's awe-inspiring system of rings that encircle the planet to be the most fascinating and iconic celestial feature in our solar system. Back in the 17th century, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei first spied Saturn through his ancient telescope. He compared the planet's appearance to having ears due to the limitations of his device. Saturn's axis is tilted, just like Earth's. For half of its year, the ringed planet leans toward the sun, lighting up the top of its rings. For the other half, it tilts back, and the sun shines on Saturn's south pole and the bottom of the rings. Interestingly, there are two brief times during Saturn's orbit when the ring edge points directly at the sun. This event, known as an equinox, gives both Saturn's northern and southern hemispheres some equal sunlight for a short while. Thankfully, this isn't a permanent change. It's a fleeting cosmic event that recurs every 29.5 years, which is how long it takes Saturn to orbit the sun. After March 2025, Saturn's axial tilt will bring the rings back into view, then vanish again in November 2025. Saturn's rings won't completely disappear in 2025, but they will seem to vanish for a short period due to an event called ring plane crossing. This happens when Earth passes through Saturn's ring plane, making the rings appear edge-on. Since the rings are so thin, they can become almost invisible from our perspective on Earth. The rings will appear to disappear for only a few days or weeks as the crossing happens. However, the rings will still be there, just not visible from Earth. Saturn experiences a ring plane crossing roughly every 15 years. With the upcoming crossing in 2025, however, conditions will be less than favorable for observing the planet. It will be largely obscured by the light of the sun.
Do you want me to make more lessons where we review the news together? If you do, then put put more in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And I have another lesson I know you'll love. Make sure you watch it right now.